Hello everyone, this is Tom Moore, better known to most of you as Purple Pain from VikeFans.com, and I'd like to welcome Minnesota Vikings Vice President of Public Affairs and Stadium Development, Lester Bagley, to our Legends of the Longship broadcast series. Lester, you are one of the main reasons that fans can celebrate having the Vikings in Minnesota for our lifetimes, and we appreciate you joining us today. How are you?
I'm great, Tom. Thanks for having me on. And it was a team effort to get the stadium deal done, including fans and a lot of people that worked pretty hard for a long period of time. But I'm happy to give you an update on it and then talk to you about whatever you think fans have in mind and might be interested in today.
Sounds great. Well, after over a decade of effort, you and the team were finally successful in gaining approval for the new stadium for the Vikings and other entertainment in the Twin Cities who will perform there and play games there. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about the challenges you faced in a real uphill battle to secure the stadium in Minneapolis?
Well, it was a long, hard climb. It was extended over a period of about 12 years and two different ownership groups. The Vikings persevered and were able to accomplish the mission. We started back when we still had 10, 11 years left on the lease, and I was a consultant to the Vikings when Red McCombs owned the team. We helped put a stadium campaign together, knowing that it would take some time to take hold. And then in 2005, when the Wilfs purchased the Vikings and became the new owners, they brought me on full-time as Vice President of Public Affairs and Stadium Development and began working. And it took about 7 or 8 years to get it accomplished at the Capitol. And basically our strategy was simple, which is to go back every year and tell the story, explain the deficiencies with the current stadium, both in terms of revenues for the team as well as the fan experience for our great fans, and to go tell the story, which we did over and over, and every year they'd push us back down the hill, and the following year we'd come back up and start anew. So it was a long effort. There were lots of ups and downs, but in the end, as I mentioned up front, we had a coalition of leaders, the governor of Minnesota, Mark Dayton, our Republican legislators, who the Republicans at the time controlled both the House and Senate, business community, organized labor, and then as important as anyone were Viking fans who really showed up at the Capitol and at various events and put some purple muscle behind the effort and showed that this team is extremely important to a lot of people in Minnesota, and that the team could not continue to exist at the Dome. We had to resolve this stadium issue, and after, I guess the rest is history, after a long, hard climb, in 12 years, we were able to get it done in May of 2012 when we passed the bill and the governor signed the legislation.
Well, we're thankful for the persistence that you had, and I imagine one of the hardest things to accomplish in this process of gaining a new stadium agreement was following owner Ziggy Wilf's direction and desire not to threaten the public or the political leaders with a move of the team. How frustrating was it to watch the Twins and the Wild get their needs cared for while many in the public just assumed the Vikings would continue to play in an antiquated and dilapidated Metrodome?
Well, we supported the Twins, and we were up there at the same time, up there meaning the Capitol, at the same time they were, but it became clearer to us that we were behind the Twins in the queue at the Capitol for whatever reason. We had both been in the Metrodome the same amount of years, and had both had the same time left on our lease, but for whatever reason, the Twins were ahead of us in line, and we stood up there with them and had a stadium proposal. But in the end, when the Twins deal got done in 2006, we were told that we were not going to be able to do the Vikings this year and they would have to come back next year. Well, the next year turned out to be 5 more years, but we supported the Twins getting their deal done, and they have a beautiful ballpark. The Wild have a great arena at the Xcel Energy Center, great fan experience. And then we just, once the Twins deal got done in 2006, we began our effort. But in terms of the pressure to get it done, there was, as we came down the home stretch in 2011 and 2012, the team had no lease. We were the only team in the NFL without a lease. And this was a very high-profile issue that was paid attention to throughout the country, and certainly by the NFL and ownership, but other markets came calling after us. And because it was a high-profile issue, it was well known we had no lease, and there was long years of frustration of not being able to complete the public-private partnership. And so we started having groups come openly court the team from Los Angeles and a couple other markets in the country, and one actually in Canada, that came knocking on the door. And we told them that our goal is to get the deal done, keep our nose at the grindstone, and we're confident that we're going to get our deal done. But the focus on the issue, the high-profile nature, and the fact that we didn't have a lease and Los Angeles wanted a team, that played out regardless. But I know, because I know the owners and the Wilfs very well, they would have never moved this team. The threat really was that if we couldn't get the deal done with this group and with this offer to pay half of the deal on the table, that I'm not sure that we would have ever been able to get it done regardless of the owners. So the danger was that at some point the Wilfs could have thrown in the towel, meaning that they would have potentially sold the team or put it on the market. And of course the people who are willing to pay or overpay potentially for the team would not be from Minnesota. So that's not a path we wanted to go down. That's why we spent long, hard years building a coalition of bipartisan political business and labor leaders and fans. And fans were not just the purple-clad faithful. Fans were business owners and union members and bankers and grocery store clerks, and people from all over the state of Minnesota rose up and basically said it's time to get this deal done, and that's kind of how it came to fruition.
Well, a lot of us watched it real closely, and we're thankful for people like Senator Julie Rosen and her hand in helping keep the team in Minnesota. And I'm sure in the process you learned more about politics than maybe you ever bargained to learn. And as a fan and a supporter of the new stadium, it was somewhat maddening to listen to some of the opponents of the stadium who clearly made claims about the stadium. It showed they'd not even read the bill that they were voting on. And then others like Senator Nino tried all sorts of elaborate political maneuvering to get the stadium bill killed. In your opinion, what can citizens do to encourage their representation to be more knowledgeable on issues when they represent our voices when they vote in the future?
Well, I think that's what we tried to do. Besides going to the Capitol and making our case directly to legislators, we tried with, I think, some decent success to educate our fans. First, of course, on the issue and what are the key arguments, but also on the process. And I've heard from a lot of people, a lot of fans who said, I've never really paid attention to what goes on in St. Paul. I've never really paid attention to the political process before until this Vikings Stadium issue, which a lot of people cared deeply about, and they followed it through the process. And the first time we cleared a committee hearing, we had a lot of people thought, okay, well, the deal's done. Well, no, it's not. We had 16 committee hearings, and we had a bill that died once that had to be resurrected. So I think there's a lot goes on at the Capitol that this project opened people's eyes to. So we just encouraged and continue to encourage our fans and folks to pay attention, weigh in with legislators, but also get involved in the election process, because that's when candidates and elected officials are very sensitive to their constituents and Viking fans, as it were, as when they're up for election. So we tried to make the case to our fans to get involved in the election process, to deliver the message, the importance of the stadium resolution. And so that was something that was important to our organization going forward. We also, as you mentioned, a couple of opponents and supporters, that rather than calling out individual opponents, that's the way things work at the Capitol. If you're adamantly opposed to something, there's going to be people that are going to try to stop the legislation at all costs. The downside of that tactic is to say that, hey, we did it, we killed the bill, but what would have happened if they would have killed the bill and killed the chance of the stadium getting done? Then you would have set into motion a team being sold, and then that whole specter of what's going to happen to the Vikings, and continued uncertainty, and all the while driving the cost up as this thing drags out longer. But lastly, on your question, I would say I cannot say enough. I mean, Governor Dayton carried the ball and was a leader on the issue, but without Senator Julie Rosen and Representative Morrie Lanning, those were our two bill authors. They're Republicans. Morrie Lanning now is retired from the legislature from Moorhead, Minnesota, and Julie Rosen from Fairmont, Minnesota, on the southern border, really stepped up and were true leaders. And our fans refer to Julie Rosen as a rock star because of what she did to single-handedly to keep this issue alive and keep the debate going, and to build the bridges and help us build the coalition of support that we needed to get the votes to accomplish the mission.
Well, the Rockstar, I think, got an awful lot of email of support after the deal was done to her inbox, so hopefully she didn't mind that too much.
No, I think she liked that. I think it was, she worked hard, and she knows it's a huge deal for the state, so I think she's proud of it. She's proud of her leadership, and she got a lot of credit, which she deserved.